What's up, and welcome to this video on the CAGED system. We're on kind of our third video here in this subcategory of the CAGED series that we're doing. We're talking about 5 ways to play a G major chord. We know we have this open position G shape, but how could I use a different shape like a C shape or an A shape or a D shape or an E shape to build the G chord? Meaning, again, I want to play a G chord, like what comes out is a G chord, but I don't, for example, want to use this open G position. All right, let's start at the beginning of CAGED, the C-A-G-E-D, because those 5 shapes are the most common shapes. That's why we have this whole system of the CAGED system, because we play these shapes. They are the main ways that we use chords, and we use them up the neck. That is CAGED. Okay, let's start at the beginning with a C shape. So I want to play a C shape. I want my hand to make this shape, but I want it to play a G chord. All right. I need to find what? What's our first question? How can I find a G note on that second string? Because that's where the bass note is built from. I need to find a G note on the second string. All right. Let's start back here. All right. We know this note. It's a C note. I'm trying to find a G note so I can build my C shape on it. C, D, E. What's after E? We talked about this in a much previous video. After E, directly after E is F, because E doesn't have a sharp. What's after E is an F. All right? All right, we're getting closer. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, F, G. G's after F. We're close. We're close. After F is F sharp on this 9th fret where the dot is, F sharp. Now we got, what's after F sharp? G. Okay. 10th fret. This is one that we talked about memorizing in a previous video. G is so common that we want to memorize that this 10th fret second string is a G note. Just put it to memory. After those notes that you've memorized, G, A, B, C, D, E, here's another one to memorize. G, 10th fret. All right, we want to play a G chord there. We found a bass note. We found a G bass note. Let's build some chords. All right, on the second string, there's 2 shapes that will use that note. The C shape and the A shape. G note, A shape, built off of the G note, we have a G chord. Back to that same note, that G note here, building a C shape off of that note. All right? So I'm not going to like capo there on that note for that C shape. I need my chord to land on that bass note. So I'm going to find that G note, there it is, and build my C shape from there. So if I wanted to use my capo, I wouldn't put it up here. I would put it back here again, so that when I hit my C shape, I land on that G note. G chord. Okay. All right, there's my bass note again. There's my my A shape for the G chord. There's all kinds of things to kind of observe here. A lot of those things I'm skipping and just kind of saving for a later video, but I'll go ahead and throw one in here right now. When you play this A shape across the 12th fret, when you're playing the G chord, playing a G chord, that little group of notes, it's a G chord up there, right? I'm on the 12th fret, G shape, A shape, sorry, playing a G chord. Check out what happens when I slide this A shape from the 12th fret all the way down to its octave, which is the open place. I'll slide that all the way down here till I don't even need to fret those things anymore. And if I played those strings, again, I don't need to hold these here, but I'm just showing you where those strings are. 3rd, 4th, and 5th strings. When I play a traditional G chord, those notes are already playing. They're a part of the G chord. Okay? G chord, A shape way up here on the 12th fret, where the bass note is on the 10th fret. So there was our C shape and our A shape of the G chord. Now we want to use the top string. We need to find a G note on the top string to build that G chord. We already have one. We have the G note that we have memorized, that G note. G chord, so there's our G of a G, G shape of a G chord. Same bass note, the G shape shares with the E shape, G, right? We've kind of gone over this like little things in other videos and looking at it in other ways. Again, it helps if you're learning another language, for example. You don't just go and hear a certain thing one time. You practice it, you think about it, you contemplate about it, and then you go back and have that conversation many times. And the more you have that conversation, the more it sinks in and you become more master of it, right? So we've played this chord before, but again, it helps to just go over it and slightly different angles, different ways of talking about it. So G chord, top string, 3rd fret, we got that note memorized, 3rd fret, G note, build the E shape off of it, I get a G chord. So there was the G of the G, the E shape of the G chord, and now we're left with the D shape. We can use that shape, as we've kind of been hinting at in previous videos, go to that pinky note, which was the 2 down, 2 over rule. When you go 2 strings down, 2 frets up, you end up with an octave. Now I've got my 3rd string G note, right? Because the D shape is built from the 3rd fret. So if I want to build a D shape, I got to follow that note to find a G note. Where's that G note? Again, 5th fret. All right, I've got my bass note to build the D shape from. All right, I'm going to go up 2 frets, and that's where it's going to kind of be built from, right? I'm not going to build my D shape back here on that where that note was. I need to go up 2 frets, just like back here. This bass note was back here, and there was my shape. D string, D chord, D note, D shape up here, 2 frets higher. So 5 ways to play a G chord. G shape of a G chord, E shape of a G chord, C shape of a G chord, A shape of a G chord, and that D shape of a D chord built on the 3rd string down 5th fret because that was an octave of a G. 2 down, 2 up. Whoa, very cool. Go ahead and take time to think about the G chord this week. For the next 4 weeks, whatever it takes, think about the G chord, review the other shapes that we've talked about, the A and the C, and when you're ready and you've contemplated and practiced much, move on to the E shape. That's going to be the next video. We're going to talk about 5 ways to build the E chord, 5 different shapes to do the E chord. Maybe after you spent some time, think about, well, can I find 5 ways to play an E chord? Through the C shape, the A shape, the G shape, the E shape, and the D shape to build an E chord. My name is Jacob Paul with Inside Out Online. I'm going to see you, what? Yes, on that next video. Peace.